Tomorrow, a 7-time NASCAR champion will strap into a race car 15 miles from where he grew up. He will not be racing for points. He will not be racing for a playoff spot. He will be racing because this weekend is personal. The spotter sees everything. And today we are talking about one of the most emotional stories in NASCAR right now. Jimmie Johnson is coming home. And for one of the last times in his life, he will do it behind the wheel of a race car. Stay with me because this is where it gets interesting. Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand what tomorrow means for Jimmie Johnson, you need to understand where he came from. Jimmie Johnson was born in El Cajon, California. That is a small city about 15 miles northeast of downtown San Diego. He grew up there. He learned to race there. He dreamed there. And for most of his career, that hometown had no NASCAR race, no track, no grandstands, no green flag. He raced everywhere else. Daytona, Talladega, Bristol, Charlotte, Pocono. He won championships in all those places. He became one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport, but not in his own backyard until now. NASCAR is racing at Naval Base Coronado this weekend. It is the first time in history that a NASCAR event has been held on an active United States military base. The track is 3.4 miles long, 16 turns, laid out on the roads of Naval Air Station North Island. San Diego Bay on one side, fighter jets and warships on the other, and Jimmie Johnson is racing it. Now here is the part of this story that most people do not know. This race is not just a homecoming for Johnson in a geographic sense. It is personal in a way that goes far deeper than just the zip code. Both of Jimmie Johnson's grandfathers served in the United States military. Both of them are buried at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery. That cemetery sits just a few miles from the track where he will race on Sunday. Think about that for a moment. He is going to strap into a race car, take the green flag on an active military base, and race within sight of the ground where his grandfathers rest. That is not just a race. That is something else entirely, and Johnson himself said it better than anyone could. He said, and I quote, "Every driver has a race that feels personal. This one is mine." That is all you need to know about what tomorrow means to him. His car for the weekend carries a special tribute as well. The No. 84 Carvana Toyota will bear the colors of the HSE 21 Blackjacks. That is the premier expeditionary helicopter squadron based right there at Naval Base Coronado. Johnson is not just racing on this base, he is wearing it on his car. Now let's talk about why this weekend carries so much more weight than just one race. Jimmie Johnson is not a full-time driver anymore. He stepped away from full-time Cup competition after the 2020 season. He went to IndyCar for 2 years. He came back to NASCAR part-time. He races a handful of events each year in the No. 84 for Legacy Motor Club, the team he co-owns. And earlier this year at Daytona, he announced something that every NASCAR fan had been dreading. The 2027 Daytona 500 will be his final NASCAR Cup Series start. Read that again. One more Daytona 500. That is all that is left for Jimmie Johnson in the Cup Series. That means Sunday's race at Naval Base Coronado is his second to last Cup start ever. In his entire career, he has 83 wins, 7 championships. He, Anduril Satan, is in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He is one of only 2 drivers in history to win 5 consecutive Cup Series championships. He won the Daytona 500 twice. He is arguably the greatest NASCAR driver of the modern era, and he has 2 races left. tomorrow at San Diego, and then Daytona next February. And that's when the weight of this weekend really hits you, because this is not just a race, this is a farewell tour stop in the city that made him. Now, let's talk about the race itself, because the track Johnson is about to compete on is unlike anything NASCAR has ever built. The Qualcomm Circuit at Naval Base Coronado does not look like a NASCAR track. It does not feel like one either. 16 turns crammed into 3.4 miles, tight 90-degree corners that will test every driver's patience. Long, fast blasts alongside San Diego Bay, where top speeds will climb. The backdrop includes aircraft hangars, flight lines, and parked fighter jets. No driver in the field has ever raced here before. Zero. Laps of experience. Nobody has a data set. Nobody has a set-up baseline. They are all showing up blind on Friday for the first practice session. That is actually an equalizer for Johnson. He is not coming in at a disadvantage because of limited practice time. Neither is anyone else. This track belongs to no one yet. And Johnson has a track record, no pun intended, of showing up at unfamiliar venues and finding speed that surprises people. He was third at the Daytona 500 last year. He knows how to make a race car move even when his seat time is limited. But let's be honest about something. Johnson is not here to win on Sunday. He knows that. His team knows that. The fans who love him know that. He is here because this city is his, because this weekend is his, because the opportunity to race on a military base 15 miles from where he was born with his grandfather's cemetery in the distance is the kind of moment that only comes once in a lifetime. And he is going to take it with both hands. Now, let's talk about what this means for the fans who are going to be there on Sunday. Naval Base Coronado sold out its general public tickets well before race day. Saturday and Sunday both gone. Only premium hospitality remained. The people who are there on Sunday, they are going to witness something rare. A NASCAR legend racing in his hometown. On the most unique track the sport has ever used, with a tribute car honoring the military units stationed right there on the base. For the fans in those grandstands, this will not just be a race, it will be a memory they carry for the rest of their lives. Johnson's former fans from decades of watching him at Hendrick Motorsports, the ones who wore the no, 48, who cheered through 5 consecutive championships from 2006 to 2010. They will be there. Southern California is Johnson country, always has been, and the reaction around the garage this week has reflected that NASCAR, as an organization, has gone all in on celebrating. Johnson this weekend, Legacy Motor Club announced plans for special appearances, fan engagement, and merchandise drops tied to Johnson's presence in San Diego. The military community at Naval Base Coronado has embraced the race with full enthusiasm. Sailors and veterans in the grandstands on Sunday, warships in the harbor behind the track, fighter jets screaming overhead, and Jimmie Johnson in his tribute car racing on roads that his grandfathers may have walked. Now, here is the spotter's take. NASCAR produces great racing stories every single weekend. Crashes, championships, rivalries, drama. The spotter covers all of it. But sometimes a story comes along that reminds you why this sport exists in the first place. Not for the trophies, not for the standings, not even for the drama, for the moments. Jimmie Johnson racing at Naval Base Coronado on Sunday is one of those moments. It is a man returning to the place that made him, honoring the family members who sacrificed for their country, racing on a track that did not exist until this year, on a base that has never heard the sound of a cup car before. And doing it with 2 races left in a career that will go down as one of the greatest in the history of American motorsport. You can debate who the best NASCAR driver ever is. That conversation will never end. But nobody argues about what Jimmie Johnson meant to this sport, the consistency, the championships, the professionalism, the way he showed up every single week and found a way to be competitive. That does not happen by accident. It happens because of the kid from El Cajon who grew up dreaming about racing. The kid who looked at a sport dominated by Southern drivers and said, I belong here too. Tomorrow, that kid comes home. Tell me in the comments what Jimmie Johnson means to you. Are you someone who watched him win those 5 straight championships, or are you a newer fan who only knows him from the Legacy Motor Club era? Either way, this is a weekend worth watching. The race goes green Sunday, June 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. If this video moved you or gave you something to think about, hit the like button, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because the spotter is never done watching, and this story is one he will never forget.